Welcome to Raising Kings, the podcast designed to empower single mothers raising strong, resilient, and emotionally intelligent Black sons. I'm your host, Jennifer Tolliver, author, counselor, and most importantly, a single mom walking this journey for over 9 years. I know the struggles, the doubts, the fears. But I also know this: we aren't just raising boys, we're raising kings. And with the right mindset, support, and strategies, we can break generational cycles and build unshakable bonds. So if you're ready to parent with confidence and build a legacy that lasts, you're in the right place. Let's get to work.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Raising Kings podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We got Wade, the filmmaker, here. What's going on, Wade?
Hey, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing good. So, Wade, welcome to the Raising Kings podcast. And so I see you wear many hats: filmmaker, you're a funeral service worker, and a pro wrestling trainee. That's crazy. Yeah. Give us a little bit of the background of your journey and how you balance all these different passions that you have.
Sure. So when I was a child, I always knew what I wanted to do. I said I was going to be a funeral director and a filmmaker. And I grew up in between the west side of Chicago and the south suburbs and the south side going to church. So on the west side of Chicago, I used to be talking about being a mortician all the time. I went to Jensen.
Really?
And there was a young man named Terrence Matthews. He was like, "What, you want to be a mortician or something?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I want to do." So when I got to high school, my senior year, my teacher, Ms. Anderson, she called Spencer Lee Jr. And she said, "I have a student here. He's interested in being a mortician." And he told me, show up in the gold tie, show up in a white shirt and a black suit. So I've been doing it ever since. I'm pretty sure you heard of Leak and Sons if you're in Chicago.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, Leaks. But I was with them for 13 years, and then I kind of branched away and did my own thing. But I still help out sometimes,
Wow. Okay. That's crazy. Yeah. Very familiar with leaks. We use them a lot in the family, unfortunately, but fortunately, they're a good service to use. So awesome. What made you want to be a mortician? Was it was a certain aspect of it? Or?
I don't really know, to be honest, because it's you know what? Growing up in church, we went to a lot of funerals. And then too, when I was younger, I remember we had a church convention in Kansas City, and I almost drowned. And I don't know if it was a near-death experience or whatever I remember kind of having, but I think that kind of motivated me to be you know what? I think I want to be a funeral director.
Yeah.
So I pursued it, and I ended up going to Malcolm X College for a little while after I graduated from high school. And then I did prereqs there, and then I went to Wilbur Wright, then I went to South Suburban, then I ended up going to Worsham College of Mortuary Science. And that school was rough. So it ended up being so rough that by the time I graduated mortuary school, we had to take this exit exam. If I don't pass this exit exam, I got to do something else. So I'm I went and tried out a veterinarian hospital for animals, and I was gonna try that program. And I saw the sick dogs with one leg and all that shit.
Yeah, you couldn't do it.
How you work at a funeral home and you can't do that? But that's a little different. But I ended up going out to Vegas to I flew out there to go work with my uncle because he got a plumbing business out there. And I'm even though my grandfather taught my uncles them how to be master plumbers and stuff, I'm that's not. And so I ended up going to film school. And right when I went to film school, it's everything kind of just started working out.
Are you still in film school now?
I graduated 2020.
Oh, congratulations.
I came out of mortuary school in 2018. Then I came out of film school in 20. I went right back because I remember Mr. Leak was how you go? You just gonna go. We need you here, man.
You're right.
But but I I say, when you're dealing with death, you gotta live your life too, because tomorrow not promised to anybody. So to me, it's being a funeral director is a great job, and it's passionate, but at the same time, you gotta have a balance because being around it all the time, it doesn't bother me, but you gotta live too.
Yeah.
I tell people, death is not my life. Trust me.
And so, hey, maybe one day you can go back, make them a commercial or something, put your film skills to use.
I've been wanting to do, because I did a documentary on a funeral home before. I've been wanting to do a documentary on Mr. Leak Sr. Just because he's really loved in the community, and he does a lot, and his sons are, taking after him and his nephew. So, they all are working hard. You put it like this, they're faithful to what they do, because a lot of people don't realize that being in that business, you have to be compassionate, and at the same time, you got to be there. It's like being a funeral director. It's not like a very luxurious job like some people may think, because you don't have no holidays, you don't have no birthday, and the family call you, and you can't tell the family, oh, it doesn't work that way.
Like, what? This is my mama.
You have to go. I did a removal on Mother's Day one time, and it's like, I didn't mind because I thank God for my mother, but if a family calls and I'm available, then they deserve to be treated fairly. We enjoy our life too, but it comes with the territory of being in that business.
And then the care you have to take, especially doing a removal, when the family is around, you can't slip and fall or drop nothing. Or you even got jumped.
And doing removal, I love what I do, but it's like, you got to be compassionate, because you understand that everybody is not going to be in the best mood, the greatest mood. So you just have to care, and you have to not take it personal either, because, you see, like, because I remember we did a removal one time, and this was like on the south side. And we went in the house, and like, it was a weird situation, because like the family, they were outside, but the friend took us in the house. The family called us, and we was in the house. And then the family came in, and they got to talk. Well, the aunt who called us, she was nice, but the family was just, I didn't take it personally. Look, I understand, so get it out and do what you got to do. But then the neighbor came in and started stealing the lady TV.
What?
Well, now, we ain't police officers. We can't get involved in that.
Right.
We have to do our job, You see a lot.
Maybe you should do, I don't know how you would legally finesse that. I was going to say you should do a documentary on the types of stuff you have to go through, but I don't know.
If anything, it had to be like, I try to keep it separate. I don't know about, like, you talk about me. Working in a funeral building, like, you do see some funny stuff sometimes, though, too.
Yeah.
Like, you're dealing with people. It's not all sadness. Like, some of it is just, you see some funny stuff sometimes.
Well, I bet that keeps the job going.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to some life. So you mentioned that you love God. How has your faith influenced your career choices and the way you navigate life's challenges?
Oh, always, because I they used to call me a preacher when I was a kid. So
okay.
I think ever since, like, I had that experience, like almost drowning in the pool.
Yeah.
And I knew that God was with me then, and I've had some really like personal testimonies, but like I always have had like my faith in the Lord, and just kind of like loving the Bible and reading it and praying with people, and just because, like I said, when I had got baptized in the name of Jesus Christ at 11, my mother, they didn't make me. I wanted to,
Right.
That's just how much I love God. This is something that I want to do. So I appreciate them for raising me in church, but allowing me to make my own decisions. Because I know sometimes some parents, they force their children into it, and it's like, people have to have their own understanding for themselves. So I appreciate, my family for that. But all throughout my life so far, still to this day, I really love God, and I try to, be compassionate for people, because again, this life is temporary. So I don't care what type of success we find down here, like, it don't last forever. So I think it's a good thing to have God in our life.
So how old were you when they were calling you a preacher and you wanted to be a mortician? You was an interesting young man.
I was probably like 8 or 9, but
it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but everything that I said I wanted to do is like God has blessed me to do it, because even with mortuary school, right? Like, it was times where I wanted to give up and walk away from it. And I'm not gonna lie, like, cause like right when I came out of mortuary school, I was going out there for like 7 months taking this exit exam, because you got to do 2 stats. You got to do funeral directing, and you got to do embalming. So both are separate tests. So I had to pass both tests. So I'm going out there taking this test. I'm like, I trust God. It's gonna happen eventually. So then when I went to film school, I ended up passing the funeral director part of the test.
Oh, wow.
I graduated from film school. I went back, and then I had a dream that I passed the embalming side. So I got up. I said, Lord, I'm gonna trust you today. I took the test and I passed.
Wow, that's such an awesome testimony. That's dope.
I don't always like the dream thing, because sometimes it's but it did say in the word, like, the young man will dream dreams and see visions of things. And so I definitely believe that that's real, because there are some people, maybe they don't realize that's a gift, but like God give everybody different types of gifts. Some people may not understand it, but I know that there's people that seen things before it happened.
Yeah,
it's real.
It's true. And a lot of times, like, people have gifts from God, and people tell you crazy because it'll give you anxiety sometimes. Or
I'll never forget one time, I kid you not, when I was younger, I remember when I first kind of started hanging around the funeral home, and I had this dream that I called him and I said, I'm going to come in. And in the dream, he said, we don't got none today. Come Thursday. I think he said, come Thursday. And I woke up and I called him. That's exactly what he said. And so, like, so I've always known that, like, God is with me because, like, even I remember, like, one time when I was going to mortuary school, I was on a train. I was going on the Brown line because I was meeting up with another classmate that lived north. I normally got off the train like on Addison, but for some reason on the Brown line, it was like two guys discussing something. And it was a little old white lady sitting in the corner with like a basket in front of her. They were discussing something and they got off the train. And so right when I got ready to get off the train on Addison Street, I think it was, the lady said, you know, those guys were going to rob you, but I was here. And it didn't dawn on me till like I got off the train. I said, that lady must have been an angel. So that stuff is real.
We're going to have to set up a whole nother podcast just to go over your visions and dreams.
I've had quite a few. And it's crazy because like I just had one recently, right, that I was in Florida with my family. And then my grandmother told me like 2 weeks later, oh, we going to Florida. I hope I have another one then.
That's crazy. We got some single moms watching and listening, and they're raising young men who need guidance. What advice would you give them about instilling purpose and faith into their sons?
I would, just tell you that everybody is an individual. I would say treat each, child individually because, one thing about us, all of us are work in progress.
Yeah.
And even like growing up in the household, like, we live with our family, but we don't know what, the kids go through in school or the children don't know what their parents go through at work. So I always say that treat everything as individual, but I would say just instill a lifestyle of prayer and transparency. I think that's a really beautiful thing because like coming up, I know I can say that, the time period that I grew up in, it wasn't really like that. But like now, I think if it had been like that, I think that sometimes people would have probably been a little more understanding for one another. Communication is a powerful thing.
Very powerful. It's like the basis of almost everything.
Yeah, because like my mom, my father, and they split because my mom and parent, they were married, but they divorced. Everybody make mistakes in life or whatever. Yeah. But there were times where like when my father was locked away, my mom, she took care of us, but my mom like struggled with mental illness. She was dealing with that and trying to raise us. And DCFF almost took us, like they came to the school to take us. Thankfully, my grandmother, she's always kind of been in the picture too. They look like they well kept, Thankfully, if my grandmother didn't step in, like we probably would have been in the system,
That's hard, especially as a single mom, because I know I deal with anxiety, ADHD, all types of stuff.
It's not easy because I have quite a few friends that are single mothers and the things that they go through and stuff. But like also they help me like with making decisions because like I got married back in 2023. But before then, like a lot of like my friends that were single had children and stuff, they would just kind of help me to know what to watch out for, Because it's a lot, everybody got their own testimony and story, but I just think that it's a beautiful thing for people to be really transparent and just let God lead you because sometimes like when this life we live in, we can't live by the wisdom of man. Like God gives us wisdom that comes from him. And so sometimes it's not always easy to explain that to people, but I feel like you just have to trust the way that God leads you. To be honest with you, like it's a lot of things about life that we still learning and growing. But if you let God lead you on how to deal with them, I think it always turns out a lot better.
You can take some of your ego out of the situation and be able to communicate more effectively.
Because I done had situations where I was a little heated about things, but then, the Lord helped me approach it a little differently and then kind of turned out a lot better, Yeah. If I had went the way I was going to go, it probably wouldn't have turned out so well.
I'm wondering what sparked your love for filmmaking? What was the moment when you knew this was your path?
I love art and I love writing. I love making poetry. And my dad is a great artist, and I always wanted to draw. I think my little sister at one point was drawing a little bit, and I was always like, why can't I draw? But I know that as a child, right, like that I always kept like a camera. I used to write, and so like I knew that film was pretty much my thing. And so like watching like Spike Lee, like one of my favorite movies is The Crooklyn's. So like seeing movies and films like that inspired me. I want to do that. Like this is something I can see myself doing. And I'm not gonna lie, like the film business is a pretty good business. A lot of people don't really understand it, I think, because it's like in the world we live in, film is really, for the most part, is more looked at as a hobby rather than a career. because a lot of times, a lot of people are not always making money off of it, you know. I mean, as opposed to like doing weddings and birthday parties or different videos, as far as like being able to get paid and stuff for it, it's like if you don't really create your own thing, it's kind of a hobby.
Yeah.
But to me, I treat it as both. Like I do it because I like it and I like being creative, you know.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm living and learning because like I'm grateful for the experience that God gave me, because like even with looking at like a lot of the big entertainers, like I think like once you really get into it and you start doing it, you look at things a whole lot differently, because like you really see like a lot of it is it's just like people build themselves up a certain way, but really the whole thing is like really you want to create your own thing, you know. Because you got more freedom. Like you want more freedom, as opposed to having these contracts that you might get paid big money and things like that, but it's like, you know.
And some of the creative control, I would imagine, on what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why, like I said, I love doing my own thing. That's why when people come to me like, well, you should get funding, I'll be like, nah, I'll fund myself. And you know, I make, you know, pretty decent living, you know, when I'm out here hustling. So it ain't like, you know, I ain't got money coming out my ears, but you know, I make it work if I really want it to happen.
Because I did a podcast with somebody and they were Ozzy Davies was his name, but he was telling me how, you know, if you don't focus on the money first, you get further because you put more passion into it, which will attract more people, and then the money gonna come from that, not just you aiming for the cash. Nowadays, it's like a lot of the gatekeeping is done, so you can get on Netflix, you can get on the Tubi, you can be on YouTube and put your work on there, and people are gonna watch it. So
I think the thing is, like, to like really be honest, I think like the gatekeeping is still there. But I think the thing is that nowadays it's just like more people are realizing that you have to build your own thing. Cause like it's people we've been watching for years, and all them coming out crying, talking about, man, they lost their rights, but it's good that they're being transparent enough to like tell the next generation, like, look, you know, all this over here that you think we have is not like that, you know. And I think that like it's kind of good that people are saying that, because like it kind of make me think about like in the Bible, right, with like Satan, he tempted Jesus, right? You know, and told him, bow down, I'll give you all these kingdoms. And I think what people don't realize, like the world is a beautiful place, but you know, it's a lot of principalities and a lot of wickedness out here. And so it's like one of them things where like you can't be desperate. No. You know, sometimes you might not be where you want to be in that place, but you got to trust God and just be grateful.
And those principalities can definitely smell the desperateness coming out of your pores, and they coming.
And there's a lot of people that done been in, because like I said, I put it like this, like because I know like a lot of people and stuff like that, but I've always said, like, you know, build yourself up. And that's what like I tell like some of the cast members that work with me, like, look, you know, we ain't out here chasing fame or nothing like that. But you have to build yourself up, you know, because a lot of that stuff is just a marketing technique. Like, you know, it's not that people are more talented than the next. It's just people just market themselves.
And their advertising budget is bigger.
That does make a difference, but it's like, you know, I'd rather have my freedom. You know?
What stories do you feel called to tell through your work, and why?
To be honest, I have like a little web series. I call it Love Always Wins. And so I always deal with love. And I like dealing with love because like God is love. I try to like instill more of that because it's a lot going on in the world, but I try to just encourage people that like really we should have love in the heart for everybody. Sometimes it might be a little hard to love some people, but to me, I think that like if we see people as human and understand that like, you know, everybody has a different background and everybody have a different understanding of life. And so, you know, it's just one of them things where like in spite of you just love them anyway, you know? You just love them and pray for them. It's not, like I said, it's not always the easiest thing to do, but it's like, you know, the world's not a bad place. It's the things us as people do sometimes that make it bad, you know?
Yeah. You don't want to hold that in your heart because it's going to mess up, especially as a creative. You don't want to be blocked by all that.
Yeah, I have friends that tell me all the time, I don't know why you still deal with them people like they lied on you and do you like this. But I said, you know what? Hey, when Judas betrayed Jesus, he greeted him as a friend. Look, I look at it like this, like me. You let God deal with people, but you know, I still try to be kind to people because you know, I understand it. You know, you just have to pray for people and just don't take everything so personal. Why mess yourself over like how people treat you? Because God will deal with them for that.
Yeah,
they got to deal with themselves for that too.
I understand that as the highest the highest form of love. But now I'm dealing with, not taking things as personally, but I can't, like, once you cross me, it's like, I can't. If I see you, it's cool, but I can't deal with you. Like,
I get it. It is not, and there's nothing wrong with being honest, but it's like, for me, like, I tell people, look, I can't change with nobody. Cause like I always say that, like, a lot of times we have misunderstandings with people. People have misunderstandings with us, but I think as people, we just have to, either come together and squash it. And if we ain't gonna squash it, just pray one for another and just let it be,
Yeah.
But I think sometimes that's the best, because there's no point of just letting things fester like that.
No, it's not.
It gets us nowhere,
It doesn't. You're right. So many Black filmmakers struggle to get their stories heard. We were just talking about that a little bit. So what's been your biggest challenge in the industry, and how have you overcome it, or how are you planning to?
I'm glad you asked. Like, I'm just like really genuinely connecting with people, because it's like a lot of times when you connect with people, it's like they'll make it about them,
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, to me, I think that it's nice for people to support each other. And I also think that that's the thing, right? It's like, because basically, like, that's what, like, with me, I try to be supportive to other people too, like, even if they don't support me, because it's like everybody wants their story told, and I've had a lot of challenges, because like I've actually had the privilege of speaking to like writers for the Chicago Sun-Times.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to a writer at the Chicago Tribune. This was a couple of weeks ago, and he told me, he was like, I'm interested in doing a story on you, but I don't know if we want to do it solely on you. Like, you worked at Leak and Sons Funeral Home, so we may want to do it on you and the funeral home. And I'm like, cool, but then I'm having a little trouble with writing, because I'm trying to see how to include you in the article about the funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
I told him, I said, because I'm a writer myself. Oh, that's the case. I write it myself.
I got you. Say less.
I'm gonna puff myself up, but if it's about me, I can write about myself. But he took it another way, and then he said, like, well, really, I'm not really interested in your story. So I told him, I said, I tell you what, I give you Mr. Leak number.
Mm-hmm. Good luck.
Number, and you can write an article about them, and I'll do me. I ain't no jealous person. Look,
You're right.
I even help you out, brother. I'll write it for you.
You're right.
But it's just one of the things. But like, when he told me that, it's like I kind of laughed, because I'm like, you know what? You have to build yourself up.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that, like, and I'm not talking about it in a prideful sense, like, oh, you're the greatness and all that. Like, no, it's just, if you don't get out here and tell people about what you're doing and who you are, they won't ever know.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's why I say I've been instilling that into people that work with me. Like, we get on the show and we working with Spike Lee or somebody. Right. We gonna tell everybody, man, I was with Spike and I was on this and that.
That's true.
But then sometimes when you work with somebody that their name is not known like that, it's like, oh yeah, I work with him.
Right. Yeah.
But you gotta have that same energy no matter who you work with. Because the thing is, nobody's really bigger than the next. It's just sometimes some people, their name just has a little more notoriety, but it doesn't really mean anything. It just means they got a little more notoriety. So I say that everybody has to promote themselves. Yeah. It's just part of the business. That's all.
Most definitely. Because if I don't believe in me, why would anybody else,
Yeah. And I'll be telling them that all the time, but it's like sometimes I feel like I'll be like just talking to myself.
Yeah, because it sounds like such a simple concept, but it's really deep. Like, you really have to believe in yourself. And because there's a difference between knowing you're talented and believing in yourself. Because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you have so much self-doubt, then nobody will ever know it. But if you don't have that confidence in yourself, it doesn't matter, like, at all. So that's one of the biggest concepts for people to catch on to, especially entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and people don't realize that all of this stuff is really an art to it. It's not about fame or nothing, but you have to promote yourself. It's about, you getting yourself to a level where you can thrive, and it's not about trying to be bigger or better than anybody. Mm-hmm. It's just you just trying to let the world know, hey, I'm here,
Yeah.
This is what I do. If you want to check me out, cool. If not, thanks for at least looking at it. Because I've had people tell me one time I had shared one of my films like a couple of years ago in a Facebook group. The sound was bad. This was bad. I was like, oh, thank you for your feedback.
I appreciate it.
Like, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it, because I'm like anybody else learning. So when I watch people work, I try not to be like overly critical, because You know,
And
I
it's
don't
a
know.
way to do it.
Yeah, and then too, everybody don't have a big budget, you know,
Exactly.
and everybody don't have the same resources. So, you know, it just sometimes you got to give people time to develop a little bit, you know. I mean, that's the thing. Like this world, we be quick to tear people down, but I'll be quick to build people up, you know.
Yep.
I think that that's a better way to do things because, you know, none of us are perfect. So, you know, I don't care. Like even people that like look at Star Wars, like a couple of years ago, they had a whole film they did, and on TV, they messed around and had somebody T-shirt in one of the films. We had one of the guys, I think he was working in Grip on the set. And
wow.
Mistakes happen, you know, and so, you know, and that's $1 million production.
And that's how you learn, like getting that feedback and then still doing it. Because if you wait, you know, and don't put it out till you feel like it's perfect, then it ain't gonna be perfect. You still gonna get the critics, and then you.
And that's why, like with me, all of the films I did, like, you know, I still post them from over the years. Like, you know, they're not the greatest, but, you know, I like what I do. And to me, it's just fun, you know.
Yeah.
Everything is not always about it being perfect. It's just about it, you know, you having fun doing what you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, again, you know, it's like I said, it ain't that nobody's any more talented than the next person. It's just, you know, the one who sometimes the one who make the most noise.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the one that get heard the most. So, like you said, that noise is that big budget.
Yeah,
now, me, I'm not gonna lie. I'm just being real with you. Like me, I don't overly spend on advertisement budget only because like I invest in what I do, but I'm not. It's like I'm not like to the point where like I'm not trying to be like super big and nothing like that. Like I just, it's nice to be known for what you do, but it's like I'm not going overboard for it.
Right, it's a balance, and you might not be ready. It's like let me grow steady because you know I go viral and I ain't got no content to keep posting and keep reading it. You know what I'm saying? It'll be a
and you got to be careful what you ask for because you might get it. That's what people don't realize. So it's like to me, I just want to be able to do what I love and be comfortable with it. You know?
Okay. And so with film, representation is so important, you know, especially for the young Black boys who don't often see themselves positively reflected. How do you think film can change the narratives and uplift our community?
I think that we should start making like, you know, more films about like transparency and just about how like some people want to be different, you know. That's not always like stereotypical things. I mean, I understand it because, you know, sometimes it is what we see, you know.
Yeah.
I get it, but sometimes I think we should focus on like making other things too, you know, making things that point people toward like, you know, reconciliation and positivity, you know, and making a difference in the community as opposed to just drugs, violence, and death, you know.
Yeah, because
I tell people I may be in the funeral business, but I would rather people live. You know, I don't condone like violence and people hurting one another because like it doesn't make sense to tear up our own community.
And we don't see a lot of it. Like we don't see a Wade character in any movies. You know, a young boy who wanted to be a preacher and achieved all his goals and knew what he wanted to do from a young age. Like we don't.
And that's the thing, like, because a lot of the stories we see, like, even like to your point, like, it'd be about a preacher, like the preacher cheating on his wife. Now, let's be real. Some of that stuff do go on the real life.
Yeah,
it happens, but not everybody is out here just bogus. Like, we all
not seeing the other side.
Yeah, like, we all fall short somewhere sometime, but it's like, it's not everybody's out here, like, just out here just ratchet, you know?
Yeah.
Like, every pastor ain't a crook, you know? You got some of them out here, but like, it's
most of them. And you from the west side? No, I'm just kidding.
Every relationship don't always end because people are cheating and stuff like that. It's just like, come on, like tell other stories sometimes.
Right. It's something else.
Yeah. Because if we keep on pushing it on our people, then that's the way people think, you know. We have to be a little bit different. Like, you know, we have to start raising up the young people to start thinking, you know, more different. Like, you know, yeah, we have our flaws or whatever, but like everything ain't got to be so messy all the time.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and then you might want to make a little messy stuff just for, but like at some point, like, you know, make something a little different.
Yeah, make it a balance, you know. So, okay, if you could create a film that truly speaks to the heart of single mothers raising sons, what would it be about?
I would probably do like a film about like a mother that went back in time and like, you know, tried to make some other decisions, you know. But then when she come back, she realized that the mistake she made was like lessons, you know.
Man, put me in it, cast me, because that's my life.
Because I feel like, we all growing. It's like, if we look at like, I should have did this, but then if you wouldn't have did that, we probably would have did something different. So
exactly,
it's like, sometimes the lessons we learn is still a beautiful thing. And so it's just like in the film, she just realized that only thing you can do is change the present,
You should do that, because that's real. Because like, you make the mistakes, but like with my life, I learned that all those things made me into a soldier. I'm from the burbs. I'm from Hazelcrest. I went to Homewood Flossmoor, and that was back in the day, like back in the 90s when it was all white. Now it's a little different. But if I had never went through nothing in my life, like all this tumultuous, crazy stuff that happened, I would have never earned my stripes. Like, I would have still been that same Jenny from the burbs with no real outlook on life, no ability to connect with people with their pain. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't have to be homeless. God took me through like a whole circle of every type of situation you can live in, but it was all for my benefit, and I'm so much stronger for it. I can relate to more people. I can understand life. And then, like I said, I got my stripes. It was like, what? Yeah, I'm from the birds, but look, I done did this. I done been through all this.
People really don't realize that sometimes we live and we learn, but sometimes people don't realize this, but like, sometimes even being in a situation where we lack certain things, like I know sometimes we live in society, it like, if a person don't have this or that, but honestly, like I just feel like as a people, we got to learn not to be so materialistic, because a lot of times, we could have money and resources to help our brothers and sisters and to help our families, but sometimes the life that they put in front of us is really only a life sometimes that it just gonna put you in more debt,
Yeah.
How many cars do you need? So to me, that's what I say is I am totally different on how I do business. Like, because I do have people that be like, man, you got to get these investors and do that. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it sound good, but then it's like, it's gonna cost me on the back end.
Yeah.
So me, I'd rather pay on the front end. That's just me, because that's what I found to have worked for me, because I'm a upfront kind of guy. So like, me, I like to have my freedom and move around. So I just like to be done with it. Like I done business with people and paid people for film and projects that never happened.
Right.
Honestly, like, cause I just like paying people up front, cause I just want to get it over with. Like, I don't like I've done business with people that don't want to pay and stuff like that. And so to me, that was a lesson that I learned to not be like that, because people, if they devote their time to help you, you should give them something,
Yeah.
And and so to me, I'm always honored to reward people for helping me. Like, I'm not saying it's like $1 million or nothing, but I believe people should be compensated for their time.
All right, let's switch on over into wrestling real quick. You got so much positive stuff going on. All right, so training in pro wrestling must require a lot of discipline and mental toughness. What lesson did you learn from it that you apply to everyday life?
I learned to loosen up a bit. One thing that I did learn is like, whenever you're working with somebody, you got to just loosen up a little bit,
Okay.
And what I learned from that, I applied that to myself spiritually. Like, when God want to take you somewhere, you got to loosen up real. Like, you got to let him have his way and have his will. Yeah. And I say that because now I'm going to go back to the dream. Because at one point in my life, in the funeral business, I felt like I was stuck when I was trying to pass that test.
Mm-hmm. I
remember, like, this might have been maybe like 3 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I had a dream that I was riding in the Sprinter van. Mm-hmm. And that was one of my coworkers and one of the young ladies that act with me. She was in the dream. Mm-hmm. We went to a restaurant in the van park. They went in the restaurant. They got their food before I did. Mm-hmm. So when they came out, I walked into the restaurant and got my food. And then when I came out, the van took off and left. A camera picked me up and carried me through the city. And it took me into pro wrestling. And when I was in pro wrestling, the trainer Steve Boz in the dream, it's weird because like we were like on like a rooftop or whatever wrestling. Mm-hmm. He was trying to show me a move, and something in my mind said, "Don't let fear hold you back." And I woke up.
Wow.
And I interpreted the dream that in the funeral business, people was getting ahead of me. I felt like I was stuck. Mm-hmm. And then filmmaking kind of led me into pro wrestling. Biz was kind of stuck. Then I went into filmmaking, and then it took me into doing something different. And like in the dream, all I heard was "Don't let fear hold you back." But I feel like wrestling kind of taught me like to, don't Don't be afraid to get knocked down. Don't be afraid to get roughed up a little bit because, like, you know, you can do anything if you put your mind to it, you know. Because, like, when I started training for wrestling, I started meeting people that I used to watch on TV. Like, it was cool.
Yeah.
I started meeting people that was in WWE and things of that nature. So it was a nice experience. I'm still connected to it a bit, but I decided to kind of get my stuff situated in the funeral business and film. And so I just, you know, would dibble and dabble in pro wrestling at my leisure. Like I'm not trying to do it to go to WWE and nothing like that. Like it's fun, it's nice having the connection, but it's like, you know, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Like what I didn't like about it though, like I noticed that they really didn't use the black wrestlers a lot.
Oh yeah.
And that kind of didn't sit right with me either. I'm one of the people that look tell it like it is because it was like one time like during Black History Month, and this was crazy. They didn't have nothing really for the black wrestlers to do. And during Black History Month, one of the white wrestlers had brought out one of the mixed guys on the chain. We all got heated like, man, no, they didn't do this.
I don't blame you. So with the pro wrestling, you still use the like the basic, I don't know if it's basic moves, but it's the same as regular wrestling.
No,
because my son he did high school wrestling.
Yeah, I did.
And, he went to state. I know a little bit. They be like tee out. No.
Now that's my thing because I trained for real. I trained in high school too, so like you can use some of it.
Right.
But it's a difference.
Yeah. And I'm so upset. I'm kind of heartbroken about it because he's really great, my son, in wrestling. He went down to state his first year, but his lack of having a male father figure in his life caused him to be like any male authority figure is a no-go for him. Yeah. He's like, we're working through it, but it's a difficulty that he has. And it's so heartbreaking that, that's part of a life of a young man being raised by a woman. I'm like, it's your coach, like what? But yeah, so
it happens, and and there's a little bit of empathy there. But like I said, he'll get through it, But it just people have things that trigger them.
Because I got some triggers, boy. So how do you push through when things get tough, whether it's in wrestling, film, or just in life?
I do a lot of praying. I do a lot of praying and a lot of reading, and I do a lot of talking too. Like one thing about me, like anybody that know me, if I got your number, I think I got that from my mom. I'm gonna probably call and talk to you. And a lot of people don't realize that about me, but I work around death. And so to me, you often hear people say, if heaven had a phone, I'd call it.
Yeah.
But while you're here, they don't even call it.
That's true.
So my thing is like,
Jesus on the main line, but you ain't on it.
So I try to, like I said, and sometimes I don't talk to some people as much as I probably should, but every now and then when I think of somebody, I try to call, or I at least try to text people every other day or call or something, because I think that's so important, because like, years and time go by, and then you don't see or hear people from years, and then it just be like, I just think that it's good to see about people, because once our time is up, that's it for this side. I mean, hopefully we all go to the same place.
But yeah. All right. So how would you suggest single moms help their sons find a strong male mentor?
You have to observe them and just see, what fits them. You have to kind of like tailor make the role model to them. Everybody don't connect, but then every now and then you may have some people that just are different, but they click.
Yeah, something you wouldn't expect. Yeah, but I always tell moms, you got to be like as serious as you are about finding a man, you need to be just as serious about finding your son a male mentor. Like he can't be just anybody. He got to know the pillars of manhood. He got to have some sense of what you want your son to be. You can't just pick any dude, just because he's an older man. And then it's a lot of people that prey. Male mentors, they prey on single women. Like and you could tell, like, come on now.
Their motives don't be the.
I'm like, nah, dog, nah.
No. And a lot of times it doesn't work that way because children, they pay attention.
All right, so I got a few more questions for you. We almost done. This is the rapid fire portion. All right, 3 more. So what is a quote or scripture that keeps you grounded?
My favorite scripture is, the simple believe every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going. That's actually the scripture in Proverbs. The simple believe every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going. But I like that scripture because, like, to me, it's important for people to like search out things for themselves
Yeah.
Because like in this world we live in, there's a lot of people say this and that, but I feel like everybody got to have their own relationship with God, and everybody had to know for themselves. Because I remember this girl, I'll never forget, this girl named Emily Cook. We was children, and she asked at this church. I'll never forget. She stood up and I don't know if she stood up or she sat down, but she was like, how do you know what religion is the right one?
Wow.
And she asked a really good question. We were children at the time, and so like to me, I always say that if a person seek God for themselves, he'll let them know. You know,
he will.
He'll speak to them, because I've spoken to somebody about some things, and when I told them about the scripture and stuff, when we talked about it, they was like, yeah, and the person had a dream that it was power in the name of Jesus, but that was just a dream, and that was my mind. I really get it at some point, but you know, to me, I think that we should give grace and allow God to work with people, because you know he'll draw if they want to be drawn.
Yeah.
So I think it's just one of them things where like I really like that scripture, because a lot of times, especially like if we look at the things going on in the world now, it's like a lot of people get bent out of shape, and I can understand it, but it's like, you know, we have to understand that we are here by the grace of God, and we didn't create this universe, so we don't get to make the rules. We just abide by them, man. We just live our life and be grateful for our time here, but we got to understand that it's some things coming, but hopefully, by the grace of God, we may not be around for.
Right. Yeah. We'll be protected.
To be honest with you, like we looking at things going on now, and I know, like when I tell people like y'all been saying that for years, Jesus gonna come back and all that Antichrist, but what people don't realize is that, you know, it's one of those things where, it said that people was going to do that.
Yeah.
It said that people was going to say, well, the promise of is coming and all that. But when we look at the things going on now, and that's why, like, I really believe, like, even the things that's going on right now, like why the people that's in these authoritative positions, they can't do certain things because they know things that we don't.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that it's like we looking at, oh my God, why this going on? But again, the Bible says, what profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? And we understand that, you know, I ain't trying to talk about anybody because I ain't God, and it is some good people in government too, but some things have to happen, you know. And the Bible wouldn't be true if it wasn't going on. So it's like, it's one of the things, it is what it is. We just gotta just, you know, just stay close to Jesus. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
It's gonna get crazy out here though. It's coming.
And stay in your power, your God-given power.
But to me, I think the real power is just in knowing that, and just you know, just being able to be prayerful and just be watchful, because that's really all. Because like we don't have as much control in this world as we think we do. Because it's like even like we just talked about the industries, right? Like when you, like as a child, you see things like, I want to be this, I want to be that. But then when you get involved with it, hold on. It's some dark stuff out here.
It really is.
But that's why we have to always be prayerful and know that, you know, that God got everything under control. But, you know, it's just some things that have to happen. And even back to those dreams that we talk about, right? Like we know that John had visions and revelation, and we know that in those days that he probably didn't know what technology was. He didn't see helicopters and all that stuff, and cars called chariots moving with no horses and all. That could have been cars. You know, and so it's like it's a lot of things. Like in that time, they had to use the things that they know to describe what they were seeing. So to me, it's like it's no coincidence that this stuff is happening. You know, and it's not for us to be fearful. It's just for us to be aware.
Look for the sign.
And they talking about like how the price of food is going up and stuff, you know. The Bible talked about how like bread and stuff would be a day's wages and stuff. So it's I ain't, you know, this stuff don't surprise. That's why, like, you know, I ain't calling no names, but you know, a lot of these people out here, you'll be surprised. They know what's going on. But God can only let them go so far up into a certain time.
All right. So if you could direct a film about any person, living or deceased, who would it be and why?
I would say, honestly, it'll probably be like, I would honestly just make a movie about random people.
Like everyday people.
Everyday people, because everybody has a story, you know. And to me, I don't really think one story is greater than the other. Like everybody been through things. Everybody had them moments where it's like, man, you went through that, you know. Everybody has a talent and a skill, and I think just to find out more, because like you can know people for years and be like, I didn't even know that.
And so, it'd be some wild stuff like word.
Like, hey, you find out a lot about people sometimes.
I gotta hire you for my I'm gonna tell my story one day.
I'm in the South suburbs too, so we can easily connect.
Because I definitely want to do that. All right, last question for Mr. Wade here. So what's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self, even though you seem like you were on point back in the day, but what advice would you give yourself?
I would tell myself, don't waste so much of your time,
Okay.
Take every moment and live with purpose, and just realize that no moment is a wasted moment. Because I went through that at one point in my life. I was like, man, I'm bored. But then I thought about, well, if I'm bored, I can just praise God.
Right.
And I thought about that. It's like you always can find something to do, because it's like, everybody have those times where we get down or we want things to be a certain way, but you just have to be faithful in spite of, and don't try to take on no more than you can handle,
Right. Yeah.
And be real, be transparent, but just know that, you keep trusting God and you keep doing the things you're supposed to, it'll work out, but you got to be patient. Because like people, if you're just looking at money, like, we need it to live, but it's like, it's not, it's not all what people crack it up to be. Like, if you got enough to take care of what you need and to be a blessing to other people, you ain't got to be greedy,
Yeah, and if you're chasing it, that means it's running from you.
And then a lot of times when people hoard it like that, they're going to end up losing it anyway.
So for those who want to follow your work and support your films, where can we find you?
You can find me on Vimeo, Wade Filmmaker 777 on Vimeo. I love the number 7, that's why I did that. But I'm on Vimeo, and then if you ever want to reach out to me, I'm on Facebook, Wade Simmons, and Instagram, Wade Jedi 99. Feel free to reach out.
Okay, cool. So what's the next big project you're working on, and what should we all look out for from Wade?
I actually have a film called Peace that I'm getting ready to film on April 1st, God willing, so I'm excited about that.
And it's going to be on Vimeo?
It's going to be about peace, like in spite of everything going on in the world, people in love, just focusing on peace.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait to check that out. This has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate it. I'm glad I met you. You was a preacher and you wanted to be a mortician from a young age. That's insane. You're definitely a great mentor for a lot of these young guys out here that are growing up without one. So I really appreciate your voice on our show.
Yeah, well, just know you can do anything, but just put God first and let him be your source and let him be your provider, because there's a lot of people out here with some ill intentions. So just trust God and use your instincts. Yeah.
So with that being said, y'all, thank you so much for watching another episode of Raising Kings. Thank you again, Mr. Wade Simmons, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right, anytime.